Hi, my name is Johanna DePier. I'm a physician assistant that works in primary care at the Student Health Center here at Ohio State. And I thank you for joining me. We're going to talk about mumps, which has been all over the news. Hopefully this will help you understand or reinforce some of the information that you've heard about up to now. Thanks for taking time to listen to this. Talk about buck mumps. The recent outbreak of mumps here on campus has really presented a challenge for everyone at the university. Many practitioners are seeing mumps for the first time in their entire career, because really mumps was thought to be a disease of the past, and there was talk of being able to eradicate it altogether. However, the outbreak of illness here at Ohio State and surrounding areas is not a unique phenomenon. Other campuses, most recently Fordham in New York City, have had similar outbreaks. The fortunate thing is that usually mumps is an innocent illness with rare complications. The difficult thing is that mumps vaccine is not fully protective, and really there's no treatment or other prevention available. Hopefully this presentation will give you a better understanding of the illness and help you protect yourself from getting the disease or passing it along to others if you do become infected. Medical historians believe that documentation of a clinical illness consistent with mumps dates all the way back to Greco-Roman times when it was described by Hippocrates. The name mumps is believed to have come from the tendency to mumble when a person has mumps, combined with the lumps that are usually present with the disease. Mumble plus lump equals mumps. Before the use of the live attenuated vaccine that is in current usage, in 1967, almost everyone had the mumps, about 85% of the general population. It usually affected children that were younger than 15. It was cyclical and happened about every 2 to 5 years and tended to occur most in the spring and fall. Just after the mumps vaccine was introduced in 1968, there were 152,209 mumps cases in the United States. Mumps went all the way down to 2,982 cases in 1985. Pretty dramatic. The states which required the vaccination laws had the lowest incidence of the disease early on. And the incidence of mumps declined even further after 2 shots of MMR, which contains a mumps vaccine, was used in 1990. And as I said earlier, there was talk of being able to eliminate the illness altogether. Unfortunately, there have been resurgences of mumps in the late 1980s, again from 2005 to 2006, around 2010, and right now, as we know. Great Britain had a huge epidemic of mumps from 2004 to 2006, with reporting about 56,000 cases in 1 year alone. Now, however, many of those folks had not been vaccinated. So mumps is caused by a virus that is located only in humans, and the virus multiplies in the upper respiratory tract and in the lymph nodes. It's found in most body fluids, as is noted on the slide. Mumps is spread by respiratory secretions like a cold, through direct contact and with fomites. That means inanimate objects can harbor the virus, things like doorknobs. So it's even more important than ever you wash your hands and avoid contact with others if you think you might have the mumps. Mumps has a long incubation period. That is the time from contact with the virus until you get symptoms, from 12 to 25 days, with an average of about 17 days from the time you have contact with it. And that's part of the reason that mumps has been going on because of that long incubation period. So the most common symptom of mumps is medically called peritonitis, or swelling of the salivary gland. That's what gives people the characteristic chipmunk cheek appearance. Sometimes the salivary glands under the jaw swell as well, and both of these occur around the 3rd day of the illness. The swelling can happen on either side of your face. Sometimes people get an earache, which is made worse by chewing. You know, they say never give a person with mumps a pickle, unless you don't like them. That sour taste caused by a pickle, or say a lemon drop, is known as a sialog. It causes the salivary gland to secrete more fluid and can cause pain. Although the illness lasts 5 to 7 days, and usually adults get sicker than little children. People that have been immunized tend to have a milder illness than those that have not had their shots. And that sometimes, I think, does affect the symptoms that they come down with when they have mumps. This is a scary symptom. What about the testicles? Up to 25% of men can get swelling of the testicles or orchitis. This involves pain, swelling, and sometimes when people are very ill with it, they get nausea and vomiting and fever, and sometimes tenderness, which can last for weeks. Now, most of the information about the testicles was obtained before immunizations. So again, hopefully, people that have immunized don't get as sick with this. And about half of patients that get swelling on both sides do get some testicular atrophy or shrinking. Decreased fertility occurs in even a smaller subset, about 13% of people, when both sides are affected. In men that have been vaccinated, as I said, the rates of complications are felt to be lower than when we were getting these numbers. So fortunately, other serious complications from mumps are rare. Because the central nervous system can be affected, complications include both viral meningitis and encephalitis. So the meningitis means swelling of the covering of the brain, which is really less serious. Usually people recover no problem. Symptoms of viral meningitis include fever, headache, neck stiffness. Encephalitis, which is much more rare but much more serious, involves actual swelling of the brain. And again, fortunately, most people do fine. Before vaccine was available, mumps was the most common cause of viral meningitis. The other thing that's not on the slide is that there is an increased risk of miscarriage in the first 3 months of pregnancy. So again, the glands in the body and the central nervous system are systems that are involved with mumps. Well, if you do get symptoms that we had referred to, it probably is in your best interest to seek care. We will advise you to remain home for 5 days from the time that you have symptoms. And your examination and diagnosis of mumps is based primarily on your history and the physical exam. There are a few labs which can be done immediately to help sort this out, but the labs that are most specific for mumps actually take several days to obtain the results, and by which time you're probably feeling better. Now, early on, the Center for Disease Control did ask us here at Wills Student Health to obtain information that helped them track the illness, and at this point, we are not doing that. The vaccination for mumps actually has kind of an interesting story. The first vaccines were available around the 1940s. However, they didn't last that long. And the person that was instrumental in developing an effective vaccine for mumps was Dr. Maurice Hillman. His daughter, Geraldine, got very sick one night and woke him up. And he examined her, noticed swelling under her jaw, ran to his lab, picked up supplies, and swabbed her throat. And from that sample, he developed the vaccine for mumps, which now is named after his daughter, Geraldine. That became available in 1967. Interestingly, he was also instrumental in refining both measles and rubella vaccine and promoting the idea that all of the vaccines be combined. Now, he was never destined for another career. He tried to be a manager of a JCPenney store in Montana, but they told him he did not have the perfect retail personality. I'm really glad that he became a vaccine developer. As you can see from the slide, when the vaccine for mumps became available, the incidence of the illness, that means the new onset of mumps cases, just plummeted. The current strain of vaccine used in the United States and worldwide promotes 80 to 90% long-term immunity. So that means after 2 shots, 10 to 20% of people are still somewhat susceptible to getting mumps. But as we said earlier, if they do get mumps, the cases tend to be milder. Children receive the vaccine at 1 and 4 years of age, which is combined with measles and rubella. Many states, including Ohio, require these vaccines to attend school. However, you can opt out of that with religious and philosophical reasons. And in fact, some of the cases of mumps outbreaks have been attributed to those little pockets of folks that haven't had their vaccinations, and it kind of sets things on fire, so that even the folks that have been immunized have repeated exposure to the illness. So doesn't really help us as a population as a whole when people don't get vaccinated. This is an important consideration for travelers because not all parts of the world have high vaccination rates for mumps. So as you can see on the slide, Africa, the Indian subcontinent, and Southeast Asia don't necessarily immunize their population, so make sure if you go to those areas that you have your measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine. So as of April 7th, we had 153 cases in central Ohio. And as I said, the CDC used our services to help track the cases, so they had a good idea of what was going on. And mumps is a reportable illness, so when we see a case, we are still required to let the health department know. So why in the world are mumps continuing to occur? Some of the things that are being looked at, one is waning immunity. So it has been years since you've had your last mumps vaccine, and that's felt to be an important reason that it's occurring again. The military actually requires another booster of mumps vaccine in order to prevent their troops from getting mumps. At this time, the third MMR is not recommended. The mumps vaccine targets genotypes A and B. The outbreaks tend to be G, but they feel that the person that's been immunized, they still have some immunity to that other strain, to the G strain. In high-density living environments, really causes a person to have repeated strong exposure to the mumps, and eventually their immune system can give in and they get the illness. So back to the same message that you keep hearing, make sure you've had 2 MMRs. And wash your hands frequently. Remain home if you've been diagnosed. That's not prevention, but again, we've seen some situations where folks continue to circulate and really they ideally need to stay home. Don't eat and drink after others, please. Thanks. So there's no specific treatment for mumps. Care is supportive, and we would advise you to rest. You can put cold or heat to the affected glands and use over-the-counter pain medications such as ibuprofen, Aleve, Tylenol. You can put ice if you do have testicular swelling. You can put ice next to the testicles. Vaccination, once you've been exposed, does not help prevent infection. It takes a whole month before that's effective. And also immunoglobulin, which is actually antibodies against mumps, that doesn't work, but avoid your pickles, that's for sure. And again, as I mentioned, it's possible that third dose of MMR, it might be something to consider, but at this point in time, that's not in use. So hopefully, in the same way that mumps joined us in January, it's going to leave soon. But again, we're here if you need us, and thanks for your attention.